Right, in this video we are going to actually perform our Dart manipulations. In the previous video we downloaded our file, we created multiple artboards and duplicated the bodice pattern on each artboard and titled the artboard with the different manipulations we're going to perform. So I'm going to start here with our center front waist dart. I'm going to zoom in on that artboard by clicking the Z key, and that takes me to that tool. Clicking on it and bringing that more close in. Now I'm moving to my selection arrow and going to select the bodice pattern. I can see that everything is highlighted. When I click on the bodice pattern, I assume that is a group. Another way I can tell it is group, up here in the left corner, it will tell me it is a group. Because it's a group and there are many different attributes of the different parts of what makes up this group, there is no one single listed attribute at the moment that I can see. To ungroup this, I go up to the Object menu at the top of my screen and scroll down here into the second grouping. It says Ungroup. Notice over to the right, it does give me what the keyboard shortcut is. I don't assume you will memorize that, but the more you get to know those, the faster your workflow will go. Now, I have ungrouped it. Everything's still highlighted. I will click away from that, and then when I click on the bodice pattern, only the pattern is highlighted, not the text, the grain line, bust point, or notch. At this point, I want to remove the white fill. So over here next to the fill and stroke box, there is the none fill. And it will be the fill that will change because it is the one in the top of the stacking order there. And when I click on it, it removes the white fill. That's great. It's easier to make these manipulations. I am going to now move my dart point up to my bust point in order to be able to perform my pivots from there. I'm going to use my direct select arrow, A on the keyboard shortcuts. Single click on that anchor point. That is the one I have selected. It's solid colored filled. Notice the others are open white. That means they are not selected. This is the active one. I'm going to click, hold, and drag it to the intersection, if I can get it to pop there, there we go, of the bust point. Now I'm going to click away from everything. Next I'm going to plot my line for where my new dart's going to go. This is the center front waist dart. I'm going to go over here to the line segment tool. Click there at the center of my bust point. Click hold and drag down to the corner point here and just a little bit past it. I'm going to extend that on down, but I want my line to be crossing through that corner. And then I'm going to go to my selection arrow, V on the keyboard, V like Valentine. Click away from everything to deselect it. I'm going to click, hold, and drag. See my bounding box next to my cursor here. All I have to do is touch the two objects I want to select, which is the line segment I just drew and the outside pattern of the bodice. So with those highlighted and selected, we're going to use our Shape Builder tool. This is new. Shape Builder tool is over here. Looks like two circles with a little arrow. And when I hover over this, it is going to partition, and when I click, separate these little areas into their own shapes. So I will click here, then it will make this other one an obvious one as well. Now I have a line segment sticking out down here that I do not want. Notice my cursor has a plus sign. That means it's going to make new shapes. If I hold down the Option or Alt key on my keyboard, it goes to a minus, meaning it's going to remove parts. And when I hover over this little line segment that hangs off, I can click on it and it removes that for me. I find that I make sure that I'm crossing boundaries completely if I draw outside of the pattern. If I just go to the line, visually it may look like I'm touching the line, but there may be a little bit of space there, and then Shape Builder will not make the two different shapes. All right, now I'm going to get my selection tool, deselect everything. Now I'm going to select just this triangular shape down here. That's the one I'm going to pivot, closing our old dart and opening our new one. With that selected, I am going to choose my rotate tool. The rotate center defaults to the middle area of the selected object, but I want to move the pivot point up here at the bust point, so I will single click, and that moved that little target point there. Now down here, I get onto the dart leg, click, hold, and drag. See how that swings that over, lines that up there, and now if I click again, I'm still in my rotate tool. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go to my selection tool, deselect everything. Now I'm going to select again my bodice and my shape here, go back to using Shape Builder and click inside this shape and drag across the other. There we go, and it still seems like I have a little bit of a segment here that I don't want, so I can click that little line. I was holding down the Alt option to change the plus to a minus. There we go. And I'm going to zoom in this area. You can see I get a little bit of a stagger there. Way to take care of that is I'm going to remove one of those anchor points. The minus key up at the top of my keyboard will subtract an anchor point. Click on that one and it removes it, smoothing out my line. And now I have my pattern. There we go. Next thing I need to do is move my dart point off of the bust point. I am going to have to kind of eyeball this because once I click on that anchor point and start to move it, I don't really have the lines to make sure I'm in the center of that. But I am going to move to about 5/8 away from that bust point. There we go. If I need to now, I can adjust my grain line so it is out of the way. And putting on our seam allowance here, let's do that. I'm going to click on the pattern outline, and to add seam allowance, I will go to Object, down to Path, come over to the flyout menu, and I'm going to Offset Path. I click on it. It gives me a pop-up menu here. I need this to be 1/2 inch, so that would be 0.5 of an inch. Click OK, and you can see that it changed around everything here. It did something a little bit strange down here, which is okay. We're going to fix that a little bit. I can direct select or keyboard shortcut A, just that segment, and start to kind of pull it down. I need to make sure that this still remains around here, and so on. That I think works pretty good. All right, select away from everything. My inside line right here, I want to change that to a dotted line or a dashed line for my sewing line. If you'll recall, in a previous lesson we talked about graphic styles. If you do not see this little icon, go to your window menu at the top of your screen and scroll down to graphic styles. Now then, I want to load user defined. If you saved your pattern markings, that will be right there, and you can load that in. And I want this to be a stitching line. So now when I deselect, see how that changed that. Since I used that one out of the user menu, it added it to my working panel. So that is over here. If I do not want these others, I can remove those default ones, and there's my stitch line right there. So I'm going to just move that out of the way. There we go. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and click and drag around all the objects there except for my title, and I can group that. There we go. That is your first pattern alteration or manipulation.